One of the things that's really critical when you're pitching to deeper cover like this is that you let the bait always fall with a total slack line. And when you're pitching out a ways like that, the best way to do that, because you really want to watch the line the whole time down. You know, if you get a bite and let that fish swim 4 or 5 feet, they're going to wrap you up every time. So what I like to do is make my pitch and finish with my rod tip way back behind my head, and that gives me a lot of slack line and I can watch the line the whole time. With this 7-to-1 reel, if I'm back here even at 1 o'clock and one bites it right away, I can and give you right there to get the hook into it. So there's a good one right there too. There, I got him. Same tree. When you get a bite out of a spot like that, it's always worth, even though I just tore it all up with that bass in there. I pitched right in there and it didn't even get to the bottom. When the water's like this, you want to use a little bigger, bulkier bait. You know, this is where jigs, or right now I'm using a rage craw that's got tails that really swim in the water. That's a good one. Look at how skinny he is. Big, long one. Let him go. But you want a bait that really displaces a lot of water. And with these pinchers on that, it's almost kind of like the blades of a spinner bait. And I can use a heavier weight, which is a lot easier for me to control when I'm flipping like this. When you get a bite out of a bush like that, you know, it's always exciting. You want to get that fish in. And I've always got several rods rigged. So if I get a fish out of there real quick and my bait's not ready, I got another one that I can just pick right up and pitch right back in there again. Any time of the year, when you're pitching at deeper bushes like this, you're liable to get 4 or 5 bites in one spot, as long as you keep pitching in there pretty quickly. If you let it sit for a minute, chances are they're going to quit biting. I'm always watching that line as it's falling. You know, if it stops, starts, slows down, speeds up, or most importantly, if it goes to a different depth. You know, if you're fishing 10 foot of water, you got a pretty good idea how long it takes to hit the bottom. If it sinks 5 foot and stops, that tells me that's probably a fish. I want to jerk. A lot of them are going to be suspended in these bushes like this, so you really have to focus on that line. There it is. Same bush. Another nice solid one. They're really liking this orange craw that I've got on there. You know, down here at Falcon Lake in Texas, there's lots of shad, there's lots of tilapia, and there's a lot of crawfish. Look how yellow his mouth is. It's a lot like the color of that craw. But the tilapia have a lot of orange to them too. They're kind of orange and blue, so that's why something like this is a really good color. Most of the time when I'm picking colors, I'm really just looking at the water clarity and then take into account the forage. So I want something that has a little bit of visibility to it, but you know, if the water's kind of clear, a black worm just silhouettes too much. It's too loud, you know, of a presentation. So we'll use a watermelon or a green pumpkin. But if, you know, if it's just the exact opposite, you know, you want something that they can find. You know, a dark color like a June bug or black neon is a real good color if the water's dirty. Even in this real dirty water, they're eating crawdads, they're eating shad, and they're finding them through feeling them more than anything. That's why a bait like this that has such good pinchers that really move a lot of water is a great bait to choose for flipping. Because in all that cover, they can feel it coming down through that tree, and they'll just reach out there and they'll turn as it's coming. They can feel it with their lateral line, and they'll just inhale it as it goes by. You know, when you're fishing through a maze like this, I mean, there's just brush everywhere. You know, how do you know which bush to flip in? And a lot of times it's just a guessing game. I need to cover a lot of water. But what I'm always doing is looking for something that's different than everything else around it. Not only the bush itself, you know, some of them are a little bushier and thicker, some of them are bigger in diameter, but what I'm looking for too is the depth underneath them, what's underneath them. A lot of times when you look at a whole field of bushes, the bass are going to be in the area where the bottom structure, where the contour of the bottom is the best, you know, close to a channel edge, a drop, or the shallowest spot, maybe a little deeper area. They're going to be at a, you know, an irregularity, but they also will key a lot of times on the different types of bushes. You know, you can see here there's mesquite bushes, there's willows, there's different things. And most of these fish I've found in the thicker mesquite bushes. That's real fine, but it's real thick. So I'm just kind of going through here, experimenting with everything and trying to let the fish tell me. Once you get a bite out of one type of bush, you really want to concentrate on that same type of cover. Anything irregular, always looking for the irregularities. Come on, get out of there. Good one too. Nice one. I mean, he was buried up down in there. There's something about that craw that they cannot handle. You can catch fish on a lot of baits. That's a mess in there. That fish right there was all the way down on the bottom. And that's the one key, is every single time you pitch it out there, you got to measure the depth that you're fishing. I pitched it in there and let it sink all the way to the bottom, and I picked up on it, and it wasn't there. That fish wasn't there. I hopped it one time like that, pulled it up a couple of feet, and it only sank down about a foot. And I knew that I'd pulled it up 2 feet. Something stopped it, either a branch or a fish. I checked it, it was heavy. I didn't know if it was a fish or a branch. I just jerked. And you have to in this situation here, because these fish will just wrap you up. When you're fishing a little bit deeper, you don't necessarily have to have that super quiet presentation. I still like to, you know, if the wind's blowing, a lot of times I like to pitch it out there and make it land with a big splash. But even right now, a soft presentation when you're fishing bushes 8, 10, 12, 15 foot deep can be critical, because you never know when a bass is going to be suspended right up there near the top. So, you know, when the sun's high and it's calm like this, I'm going to go right there to the center of the bush and with a nice soft entry, and then let it go all the way down to the bottom. So, you know, you don't want to get sloppy when you're fishing, even when you're fishing deep water like this. There it is. It's still on there. I can see him. I can see him down there. Sometimes, I don't know if I can reach that far down or not, but I'm gonna try. Oh, you little stinker. I got him pegged. Sometimes you gotta go after him. Oh, come on. Yeah, I can touch him. Got him. I had him pinned right through the tip of the lip. Man, I'm still hung in there, but you know, that's a good solid fish. The problem when you're flipping this stuff right here is not getting them on, it's getting them out. And you got to have good equipment, without a doubt. You know, having a good stiff rod, but you don't have to have something like a pool cue out here. You know, you got this braided line that doesn't have any give. So I like, you know, a little bit longer rod that's got a little bit of tip in it. It's got to have a lot of power. But when you're flipping all day like this, and a lot of times we're using a big weight, a 3/4 ounce sinker or a 1 ounce jig, you got to be comfortable. So the two things that I do that really help me out a lot is I use a 7-to-1 reel, not only because I can pick up a lot of line if a fish is coming up, but it saves a lot of dead time. I've got a lot more time where my pitches are in the water. You know, when I'm reeling it in to make the next pitch, it comes in a lot faster. And then just having a super sensitive, lightweight rod, it's just a lot less fatiguing over a long day of flipping and pitching. This is hard work fishing this way, but it's so effective you can't afford not to do it. Big one. Oh, I mean, that's a big one too, and it got him hung right there. Get out of there. This is what you always... Oh, man. The fish I've been looking for. Look at there. I can see him. There, I got him. Yeah, look at that one there. There's a cow right there. Big old fat fish. That's why you flip like this, man, is you gotta get in here in this thick stuff. Probably the biggest thing that's important to do when you're flipping a lot of brush like this is to look at the different types of brush that are there and find where it's different. You know, I'm gonna fish real fast until I get a few bites, and I'm gonna remember what kind of tree I caught that one out of right there. Boy, what a fish. I mean, he is fat. Oh man, that never gets old right there.